Today we're going to take a look at a sports legend whose accomplishments on the professional stage in football, track, mixed martial arts, and even bobsledding have made this athlete almost more myth than man. That person is Herschel Walker. But before we get into one of the Paul Bunyans or John Henrys of our time, do me a favor and click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on more fun content like this. All done? Let's go. Every once in a while, an athlete will come along and define a generation with their physical ability and unquestionable talent in whichever sport or sports they are playing. A lot of times we see athletes on the field doing things many could only dream of, but what we see on television or from the stands doesn't take into account the many hours pumping iron and practicing their craft to achieve their greatness. Well, one athlete accomplished everything he did in his illustrious career and didn't even lift a single weight. This athlete is Herschel Walker. Like most amazing tales, Herschel Walker started off with adversity. As an overweight kid with a speech impediment who was too broke to afford traditional weights to exercise, when it came to athletics or even life, Herschel was the last kid in his 8th grade class that anyone expected to ever be called special. After being constantly picked on and beat up by classmates during 8th grade and being singled out for being the only black kid in his predominantly white hometown in Georgia, to say the cards were stacked against him would be an understatement. Well, one day Herschel used his hatred for those who teased him and harmed him and channeled that into motivation to change his narrative. During the summer of his 8th grade year, while watching television, Herschel decided to start working out during commercial breaks, doing as many push-ups and sit-ups as he could, and before long his little routine grew to an astounding regimen of 2,000 push-ups, 3,000 sit-ups, and 1,000 pull-ups in a single day. Keep in mind, when Herschel first started on his push-up quest, he was barely able to do a single push-up. Herschel spent that summer transforming the overweight kid with a speech impediment into a jacked freshman, and as Herschel's physique and athletic ability began to grow, so did his confidence, and the list of bullies began to shrink. Instead of taking his rage out on people that teased him and beat him up, he turned his hate into motivation to become bigger, stronger, and faster than anyone in his high school. The uncoordinated kid who was never looked at as an athlete transformed himself into a two-sport high school superstar and Georgia legend in football and track and field. Before long, he'd become one of the best athletes in the state, let alone the entire nation. Like a true local hero that becomes more of a mythical figure, Herschel's ridiculous ability would draw crowds in a time long before social media, but there are clips of this guy's feats all over the internet. Oh yeah, the out-of-this-world athlete was also a brainiac and was his high school's valedictorian. Naturally, after being one of the best athletes ever to come out of Georgia, every school under the sun wanted a piece of Herschel Walker, but it was his home state of Georgia that was always on his mind, like his state's official song, and where he ended up choosing. At the University of Georgia, the legend of Herschel would only grow, and where it really took off. Herschel excelled in football and track, and the college would quickly take notice. During his first year at Georgia as a true freshman, Walker set the NCAA freshman rushing record, which wouldn't be broken for 37 years, and he became widely regarded as one of the best running backs in college football. Adding another notch to his collegiate belt, Herschel also became the only person to finish top 3 in Heisman voting all 3 years he was in college. He would also go on to win the Heisman and be named a 3-time All-American in football and track. Herschel Walker is considered one of the best running backs and players in college football history, and there aren't many who would dispute that. If you don't agree, check the highlights and you'll see for yourself. The guy was an absolute monster. There's no way someone this big and this strong should be this fast. Dude literally looks like a video game cheat code and is breaking long touchdown runs on angles that defy geometry. Not to mention running over people like a grown man playing pee-wee football. Walker made other people look like they were walking. There's a clip of him competing in the 60-yard dash with the current world record holder, and while most sprinters line up as close to the chalk as they can before the starting gun sounds, Walker is several inches behind it. Maybe Herschel is trying to give them an advantage? The announcer questioned whether or not he was being superstitious. Either way, in a race that's determined by milliseconds, Walker gets kudos for giving everyone, including the world record holder, a head start. After college, Herschel joined the USFL and continued building on his legend and put his freakish talent on full display. The USFL lasted 3 years, and during Herschel's time there, he became the best athlete in that league's short history. After the league folded, the Dallas Cowboys acquired the rights to him and thus began Walker's NFL career. He spent a few years with the Cowboys and had 1 really good season and 2 mediocre ones. Well, mediocre for Walker's measuring stick at least. The guy still had at least 1,500 total yards in his first 3 seasons, but would be traded early in his 4th season. In true Herschel Walker fashion, Walker was traded for a king's ransom in what has long been considered the worst trade of all time. Sorry, Bill O'Brien. In which the Minnesota Vikings sent 5 players and 3 first-rounders for Herschel. The move shocked the sports world not only because Herschel was dealt, but at the amount that the Vikings would pay to get him. I guess that's what happens when you pay for someone as mythic as Walker. Even more shocking than the hefty price tag was how little the Vikings used him once trading for their prized possession. Could you imagine spending that kind of draft capital on a player, let alone a running back, and never giving him 200 carries in a season? Well, the Vikings did, and as the story of Herschel in the NFL would go, the running back would spend his next 5 years on 3 teams before retiring, failing to really scratch the promise that he came out of college with. It's not that Herschel had a bad pro career. He put together an NFL resume that most athletes would be more than proud of, but most athletes weren't arguably from another planet like Herschel was. So the NFL world would always be left wanting and wondering when it came to his 12-year career. A 12-year career that sadly still hasn't gotten Walker a Hall of Fame call. The legend of Herschel Walker started with football and track and field, but also extended far beyond the gridiron. In 1988, as a member of the Cowboys, Walker participated in the Fort Worth Ballet. Known for being more of a punishing runner than a graceful one, I don't think anyone but Herschel knew he could pull off something like ballet, but if we've learned anything from Walker's story, it's if you could believe it, you could achieve it. While a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, Walker participated in the 1992 Winter Olympics as a member of the United States bobsled team. Although he made the 4-man team, he eventually competed as the brakeman or pusher in the 2-man competition and ended up placing 7th. From the ice to the octagon in 2007, Herschel appeared on the show Inside MMA as a guest and ended up getting an official fight in 2009 at the age of 47, and he would win by TKO. 2 years later, he would fight former WEC Scott Carson and defeated him by TKO as well. I mean, the dude was almost 50 and still knocking guys out. I guess having the kind of mindset that allows you to do a daily mind-numbing regimen of push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups is where he gets his superhuman-like ability and confidence to wear all of these different hats. Case in point, at 48 years old, Walker proclaimed that he was in better shape than he was in his early 20s and would attempt an NFL comeback at 50 years old to show people that he could do it and that he wanted to be the George Foreman of football. He also said that he had recently run a 4.35 40-yard dash to support his claim. There's not tape to support this boast, but if it's true, to give you an idea on how remarkable that would be, it is faster than some of today's superstar freak athletes, including Saquon Barkley and Julio Jones. Is Herschel crazy to think he could do all of these things, or are we crazy to ever doubt him? One thing's for sure, he's never doubted himself and often made the many that watched or followed his career think he was invincible. Never known to step down from a challenge, Herschel would put the superhero aura surrounding him to the test later in his life by challenging people to Russian roulette. He claimed he was never suicidal or anything like that, he just wanted to never back down from any challenge, even if it meant his own life. Insane? Perhaps. But when you're larger than life, maybe sometimes you believe your own legend. Many in the media thought Herschel Walker was insane when he made his NFL comeback claim some 13 years after his last NFL game. Many of the sports world treated it like a joke. But those close to Walker knew he believed in himself to the point that if he said it, he definitely believed it. Like the overweight kid with the speech impediment who was picked on and beaten up, Walker grew his confidence to a level reserved for the best of the best. That's why when Walker doubled down on his NFL comeback claims and even chose 2 potential destinations in Atlanta and Minnesota, it's rumored that he received a workout by an NFL team. This rumor is unconfirmed, but it only confirms that Herschel Walker was someone who transcends sports themselves and is as legendary as they come. That does it for our sports story of Herschel Walker and his amazing sports career in life. Now approaching 60, it is likely that his sports career is officially over, but if there's anything we've learned in his video, it's never to count this man out. You may only motivate him to prove you wrong. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think about Herschel Walker and his incredible life and story. And if you haven't done so, make sure to click that subscribe button. Until next time, sports fans.